Hello, I'm Emily Rhodes. Today we're going to be talking about this book, The L-Shaped Room by Lynne Reid Banks. Now, some of you might be familiar with the name Lynne Reid Banks. She also wrote a great children's book called The Indian in the Cupboard, and there are a few others in that series. And some of you might be familiar with the title of the book, which was also made into a hit film in the 60s starring Leslie Caron. Gosh, that name always nearly leaves my head. But we're here to talk about the book, which maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't know. Maybe some of you read it when it came out in the 60s. Maybe you've read it more recently, maybe you've reread it. But this is the March pick for Emily's Walking Book Club. We meet for 2 walks every month, once in Regent's Park on a Friday and once on Hampstead Heath on a Sunday. Most people don't come to both, but you're very welcome to. You sort of come to one walk if you can make it. We also have a weekly newsletter, and we're now at about 2,500 members all over the world. So about half of you are in America, so tend not to come on the walks. But we have Zooms, and I do these webcasts. We have live discussion threads. It's really a reading community, and my aim is to bring us all together, reading great books together, I suppose, in whatever way that is. So I'm just going to apologise in case you can hear a sort of strange scratching sound. Can you hear that? That is... Dun, dun, dun. That's Alfie. Not on my lap for once. I thought he was actually quite happy down on his little bed with his toy. So ignore the scratching, and we're going to talk about the L-shaped room. What do I have to say about it? How are you getting on with it? I mean, I think, okay, let's begin with the title, The L-Shaped Room. It's kind of unusual to name a book after a room, and especially a particularly sort of oddly shaped one. Of course, it makes me think of A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and it does really make me think about how important rooms can be in your life, kind of symbolically as much as anything else. So I'm recording this in my little room of my own, which was where my youngest baby was. She was in a little cot under here, and then when she got big enough to move into a bed, she moved in with the older two. And my lovely husband architect built this kind of funny platform up here and put this desk in and chair, and you can see there's this lovely window here. And this is my room, and this is where I write, and there's I suppose there's a very clear link between the space and the person who's in it. In the book, The L-Shaped Room, when Jane, our kind of heroine, the narrator, first encounters the room, it is not a nice room. And through the book, she works on it, and there's this sort of clear link with having the energy to kind of create a good space for herself, both physically and mentally. In fact, I'm just going to read the very beginning bit out, which is so good. I've got to say, I loved this book. I really, really loved spending time with Jane. I just felt very connected to her, I think. So I'm just going to plug that in. Noise from Alfie. It's a real I felt there was a very clear voice. It's another first person narrator. You feel very connected to Jane and very sympathetic towards her situation, which you will suddenly discover when I read this. Okay, so chapter 1, accompanied by Alfie. There wasn't much to be said for the place, really, but it had a roof over it, which locked from the inside, which was all I cared about just then. I didn't even bother to take in the details. They were pretty sordid, but I didn't notice them, so they didn't depress me. perhaps because I was already at rock bottom. I just threw my one suitcase onto the bed, took my few belongings out of it, and shut them all into one drawer of the three-legged chest of drawers. Then there didn't seem to be anything else I ought to do, so I sat in the armchair and stared out of the window. It was a greyish sort of day, which suited the way I was feeling, and it looked greyer because the window needed cleaning. I registered this vaguely, and thought I'd buy some Windoline tomorrow and give it a going over. Then I thought, what the hell, no one's going to see it. I had an empty sort of feeling and wondered if I was hungry. If so, it would be the first time for a week I'd felt like eating. I thought about various sorts of food, but they all struck me as quite unattractive until I came to, I've got a prop here, coffee. Almost all I'd had for a week was coffee. I got up and felt in my trench coat pocket to make sure I had my wallet and keys, and then went out, carefully locking the door. My room was 5 flights up in one of those gone-to-seed houses in Fulham, all dark brown wallpaper inside and peeling paint outside. On every second landing was a chipped sink with one tap and an old ink-written notice which said, "Don't leave tap dripping." The landing lights were the sort that go out before you can reach the next one. There are a couple of prostitutes in the basement. The landlady had been quite open about them. She pointed out that there was even an advantage to having them there, namely that nobody asked questions about anybody. She dropped her eyes as she said that, not out of modesty. She was looking to see if I were pregnant. Just because you don't ask questions, her look said, it doesn't mean you're not curious. But I had only been pregnant a month, so of course there was nothing to see. It's such a good opening. I think it's to my mind that's got to be up there with the best openings. So we have this room, we know it's grotty, and I think the other thing we pick up on from this very first page is the fact that, this is in the 60s. This was a time when Fulham was really run down, whereas now it's sort of mega smart. So London was a slightly different place. There's prejudice. It's not okay to be unmarried and pregnant. And that's just the sort of first instance of prejudice in this book that has got, everyone is so prejudiced against everyone else. I think you could read it and take offence if you are, someone who's Jewish or a person of colour. There's a lot of sort of offensive language in there, but actually it feels like it's against everyone, and it's sort of reflective of the attitudes of the time, unfortunately. The reason the room is L-shaped is because, of course, there's a little kind of box room that's been carved out of the bigger rectangle of the room, and that belongs to, her neighbour, who is a black man, and her initial reaction to him is she's kind of quite frightened by him, but then they become really good friends. There's also somebody downstairs who they become slightly more than friends. And it's funny because, she's come to this place, she's left her father. Her father, there's not been a great ending on learning that she's pregnant. The father of the child is, out of the picture, and she's feeling so ashamed of herself and sort of punishing towards herself that she has gone to this very horrible place, as though she really deserves the worst. She's kind of gone to seed too, as well as the room, the house. And through the company of these misfits, we already learned from the start there are these sort of prostitutes in the basement. One of them is actually called Jane. There's a brilliant moment where she does really wonder if she is no better than a prostitute. There you go, prejudice against prostitutes too. But they, she kind of brings together this assortment of misfits, and through them makes her room nice. They help her to decorate it. She brings in her things. The walls get painted. She makes it, instead of it being a shameful place, she makes it a positive place. There's also another room in it, her office, which she knows she's going to have to leave soon, and she feels very fond of that room too. It's really a book in which rooms literally speak to her. She says with the office, she imagines it saying shalom to her when she comes in, which is kind of nod to the Jewish people who run the hotel where she's working as a PR. So the rooms speak to her. She works on the room. She has relationships with the room. I mean, there are other books about rooms, aren't there? There's A Room of One's Own. There's also A Room with a View, and it also really makes me think. It's like a kind of distorted reflection in some ways of a great book called All Passion Spent. I've got it up here. Hang on. This book by Vita Sackville-West. So I haven't quite worked out the mirror here. There we go. Which was written. Vita Sackville-West was the lover of Virginia Woolf, and it was written as a fictional companion to Room of One's Own. Here, the room, or in fact the house, is a little cottage in Hampstead, and Lady Slane is much older than Jane. This one is called Jane. But she also kind of leaves her family, sort of casts herself out, and only surrounds herself with these new friends, this kind of different mix of people who she wants to be with, or perhaps needs to be with at that time. I suppose I wonder if any of you have experienced something similar of finding, your own room, whether that might be in at university, going off and getting your room and suddenly being surrounded by these new people, or we've talked in previous meetings we're talking about another book here, The Ginger Tree, that was our January book. We talked then quite a lot about living abroad, moving abroad and finding yourself in a different place and having to forge new links for yourself and make a new home for yourself and the challenges of that. So I wonder if if you had any L-shaped rooms in your past, or other shaped rooms of any shape that had been meaningful to you. I mean, there's so much in this book. I don't really want to give away spoilers in this, but we meet Jane when she is at rock bottom, even though her room is at the top of the house, and we see her go through this journey of resilience and growth, both kind of literal, because we know she's pregnant, she's going to get very big and those stairs are going to become a challenge, but also metaphorical, her sort of personal growth as she decides what she's going to do about having this baby and how she's going to cope, and she really pulls herself together with the help of her friends and a wonderful aunt. But it's a story of resilience, of making your mark, of finding your space, finding the headspace as well to cope. And I loved it. I really, really loved this book, and I can't wait to talk to you about it and to hear your thoughts and your own experiences of the rooms in your life. This is the March pick for Emily's Walking Book Club. This month we're linking up with the Daunt Books Festival, which is in Marylebone, for our Regent's Park walk. We also have our Hampstead walk, and you can sign up to our newsletter where you get an email from me every Monday with lots of interesting things about the books and other stuff. It's just emily'swalkingbookclub.substack.com. Thank you so much. Oh, and next up, help, I don't think I've got this one to hand, is it's a book called Out Stealing Horses by Per Petterson, translated by Anne Bourne. Okay, thank you.